one of the things that's really beautiful about this space is that there is a broad range of folks here in terms of what they want to do and how they see the church. And some of you guys are like, I'm out of church, I'm done with this. And some of y'all are like, I want to find a way to make this work. There's something beautiful here, and I can't imagine leaving it. And I want to be able to stay in the middle of it. Both of these are okay places to be, and I want to give you permission to be there. For those of you who are really invested in and really want to continue to figure out what it looks like to serve in a church, you're maybe on your way out, but you're just not ready to say, I need to make sure I'm taking care of myself as part of that decision making process. I want to make an introduction to you today, and that is Michael Felker. Michael was in ministry in Mansfield as the preacher there over a number of years. But Michael, I want to turn it over to you and let you introduce yourself and just tell us more about you, and then let's just have a conversation about what life after ministry has been like.
All right. Well, Trey, thanks for having me today. And I'm excited to kind of tell my story and maybe if it helps point people in the direction that they need to go, if it's helpful, then that's what I'm hopeful for. So my name's Michael Felker. I am married to Sandy Felker. I'm the dad of Houston and Adele. I have a 12-year-old son and a 9-year-old girl. And we have been serving in Mansfield since 2006. We were there for 15 years, but our dream has always been to maybe when we retired or down the road to be a minister to ministers, to pastor pastors, and take some of those unique experiences that we had, take some of those the tools that other people have given us and be able to pass that along to help ministers as well. Well, in the midst of everything, after about a year or so, we felt God's pull and push that, maybe it's not down the road, not 20 years down the road, maybe it's now. And so we've taken that leap of faith and moved in that direction.
So you made a choice to exit ministry. You said now is the time.
Yeah.
Tell me about some of the things you took into consideration about how you knew this was the moment it was time to make that transition. Some of the tug of war, the push and pull you felt about leaving or staying. Tell me
Yeah.
more about that time.
Yeah. So, I'll just say pretty honestly, one big reason is my wife is our CFO. She is our chief financial officer. She is chiefly concerned about the finances and all of that going on in our lives. And for her to kind of look at everything, look at our position and say, no, this is what we need to do. This is where we feel God's calling us. And I'm not concerned about where we are financially, was pretty great. We sold our house at the top of the market. We were able to pay off some debt, take away some of that financial constraints and some of those worries there, and then kind of move forward in that. So my wife and us being a team mates with one another has just been absolutely great. And when I'm kind of concerned about some things or I've got some questions, she's the one that's no, we're moving ahead. And there are some ways too when she is a little maybe concerned about some things and I go, hey, here's the conversations we've been having, here's what's popped up, here's some opportunities. We've just been able to communicate well with one another. So that family stress has not been a factor. It's actually been an opportunity for us to continue to discuss and look for the future. So that was one major thing, is that we, when my wife hears from the Holy Spirit, I feel like he speaks to her more than me. So I take that for what it's worth.
So as you think back to your time in ministry, what do you miss? What was there that was going on in ministry? Do you think, I do miss that part of it?
Yeah, I mean, I miss the interactions with the people on a normal basis. One of the things that I was sad to and I had to grieve as we left is one of my former students had become the new preschool director there at our church, and I'm super proud of her and of her accomplishments. I think it's a great fit for her, and so I was sad that I was going to be stepping away from a role where I would have gotten to see her lead her staff, maybe help in some aspects with that. I miss those smiles. I miss the kind of the activity during the week of people coming in and out of the building and interacting with that. I miss my study schedule. I love to write, and I love to think through what our messages are going to be and be able to kind of bring in some input from the people that I'm teaching and that I'm working with. And so I miss that a little bit. And then, it's still just a couple of months out, but I recently had to do a funeral for somebody who passed away with COVID. And so, again, kind of coming into that environment and missing, I did the service. I was with the family. We were in the hospital. I was doing all of those pastoral things, but there was something different when I walked into the building to do the funeral. I felt like a hired hand almost.
So you miss the pastoral side. Let's have a little fun here. Tell me about the things you wake up in the morning and go, oh, I don't have to do that. Praise God.
Yeah. So I don't miss necessarily the delivery on Sundays, like getting up, and we've been going to church as a family, and that's been fantastic. My wife loves sitting with me, and our kids have enjoyed doing that. They're going to church with some friends. And so we've really kind of just enjoyed being ministered to a certain extent, but maybe just kind of showing up and being anonymous. Then I don't miss somebody coming up and saying, hey, you're 30 seconds from delivering this thing you've worked on all week. Let me give you 5 announcements that you need to make, and you need to make them right now. So I don't miss that at all. I don't miss having to deal with some of the anxious people that I was dealing with, right? Anxious leaders, the people that are just freaked out about the giving that week, or the numbers, or freaked out about what's going on in the culture. I'm not on a text chain with our leadership complaining or commiserating about issues that are seemingly important at the moment.
So, Michael, as you think about the transition you have made now, and you're doing some coaching, and you're spending some time ministering to the ministers. Tell me more. How did you choose that? What's important enough to you that you would say, okay, that's the direction I'm going to go now that I'm leaving ministry?
Yeah. So, like I said, this has always been kind of the end goal, the dream, if you will. My dad's a coach. In fact, this is his 38th year at the school that he's been teaching at since 1982 or 1983, and he's always been a coach. And I got my Ted Lasso mustache. I didn't think about us being on screen. It was for Ted Lasso. It was also for
Where
Movember.
are my cookies? Come on, man. Where are my cookies?
Biscuits with the boss. And so my dad's always been a coach, and then the people that have poured into me have always had some sort of coaching facet to it, right? My youth minister would call me up and say, hey, we're going to Home Depot or getting something. And he was constantly just kind of pouring into me. The people that I've spent most of my time around are coaches, whether it's in a sport or even kind of the way they lead their organizations or lead their people. And so
what I heard you say, Michael, at least, was that part of choosing where you went after ministry was knowing what was important to you, knowing what had been modeled for you, having a clear sense of self helped you make that choice. And I think that's a really big thing because so much of what we leave and so much of what we attach to ministry is our identity.
Yeah.
It's easy to say that my identity is as a minister in a church, and we know it's the minister, and then all of a sudden it gets kind of intermingled with church. And the ability to say, no, this is who I'm called to be in whatever context I'm at, and to be clear about it and confident in it. That's an important step in
Yeah.
making that move out of ministry, whether it's a healthy one that you were ready to make or one that was made for you.
At 23, 24, 25, 26, I was already shuffling through this idea. Okay, this is my identity is who I am and what I do. It's not based on what somebody else says or what title I have or anything like that. And so I had to deal with that. And then when I moved back here, I had a group of friends that were moving from youth ministry to lead minister or to preaching, and they were all at that point kind of dealing with, am I betraying my calling as a youth minister? I always said I would be a youth minister till the day I die, and now I'm transitioning into this. I've failed myself, and I failed other, right, and having to deal with that. So I was able to, I hope, was able to give them some encouragement and to help, focus them on, no, it's not what your title is. It's not what you thought life was going to look like, and now it's changed. That's not your identity. And so working through that, I've had to do that. I've already had one friend ask me if they ever think I'm going to get back into ministry, and I just after this transition, I'm like, yes, yeah, I think that's in the cards one day, right? I just listen to it and realizing that that's what they're talking about. They're not calling my identity into question or anything
Right.
like that.
So, Michael, one last question for you. You see some specific needs that we've talked about that would really
Yep.
help folks who are kind of in this space of, I don't know what I want to do next. All
Yep.
I know is I can't make sense of where I'm at.
Yep.
Um, you talked about two or three very specific things. So, in 3 or 4 minutes, why don't you walk me through a little bit about what those needs are that you see that really need coaching and pastoral care and the ability to have someone along the journey with you?
Yeah. So one of the things that I've really kind of looked at over the last few years or so, getting healthy physically, emotionally, and mentally, is I've looked at the parable of Jesus. Jesus talks about the vineyard, and he says that here's this vineyard owner. He looks out, he sees this tree that is taking up space. It's dying. It's never bared fruit, and he wants to rip it up. And the gardener says, "Hang on, just a second. Let's make a circle around it. Let's feed it. Let's fertilize it. Let's give it what it needs, and then let's give it a year and see what happens." And I'm a big believer in kind of Tim Ferriss's two week experiments, right? It's not about going and changing your life, saying I'm going to be a morning person. I'm going to get up at 4:30 every morning, and you get up 4:30 in the morning, and then about noon you crash, and you say, well, maybe I shouldn't do that again. But taking some opportunities to look at some areas of your life, seeing what may be possible, what possible changes need to be made, and then kind of taking some of that, making a circle around it, feeding it what it needs for a small period of time, and then seeing what blooms or what bears fruit. And so I look at all the trees in our vineyard can probably be broken up into heart, soul, mind, body, relationships, and then, as we've talked about, identity. And so I would just encourage somebody right now to take an inventory of their vineyard, right? How are things going on in your mind, right? Mentally, are you being overwhelmed by negative thoughts? Are there any hope whatsoever in there? And so being able to kind of identify those thoughts that are going on, the emotions that are going on. Are you constantly afraid? Are you constantly fearful? Are you depressed? Being honest and open about those two things are super important. Being honest about what are those tapes that are going on in your head. John Acuff's new book, Soundtracks, right? What's that soundtrack that keeps playing over and over in your head, and just identifying it and being aware. And so if it's positive, feed it. If it's negative, cut it out there. And then what's going on in your soul. Recently I read that I think it was something like 75% of pastors right now feel like they haven't made room, or they don't have space to even work on their own spiritual life.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll be honest, one of the reasons why we felt like now was the time is we were being honest about needing a break and needing to take the vacation time that was allotted to us by the congregation, right? That that we had agreed to, and there was a lot of pushback on when we could take that, when we couldn't, all of those kind of things. And we just needed, I needed to be able to say, I need this for myself and for my family. And so I took a sabbatical after I left. So that was what needed to happen. So being able to just kind of go, okay, what's going on inside spiritually, and then physically. Are you eating what you need to eat? Right, that has a big impact on your emotional and your physical health, your mental health. So are you getting enough exercise? And then relationally, what relationships are feeding you? What are encouraging you? Sometimes we need to get out, especially as ministers, we need to get out of the church and just be friends with people who don't expect anything of us other than just to be a human being and just to be their friend as well. And so dealing with that, and then again, your identity. What's going on inside? Do you see yourself as a child of God? Or do you see yourself as the minister at this church and nothing else? Do you see yourself as, a loser? I don't know what's going on inside the minds of everybody, but I know that there have been times that was a big issue for me. Am I a failure? Am I causing more harm to this church than by being here? Right? Am I growing this church down, and taking on those identities? And that's not what we're called to do, and that's not healthy for yourself, and it's not healthy for your church that you lead either.